Moving over to the NBA preseason, there's some takeaways from that. First of all, Lonnie Walker has been waived despite having a pretty productive preseason. And this is a guy who I thought was going to be a really, really key member for Celtics coming off the bench this year. Lonnie is, if nothing else, a great scorer. And especially for guys coming off the bench, that spark can be really, really helpful. The Celtics as a team, especially in the starting five, that's a lot of Swiss Army knives, right? They can defend, they can play make, they can score, they can do whatever. But sometimes, especially with a guy like Jason Tatum, they can be inconsistent on that scoring end. So if you're able to have a guy like Lonnie Walker come off the bench and give you a good 14 or even more, if he has to step in for a guy having an off night in the starting five and he's able to come in and give you 20-plus points in a game, that's huge. And I thought Lonnie Walker was going to be really, really good for the Boston Celtics this year, but now he's not going to get a chance to do that. I thought that if the Celtics were going to repeat, and obviously that really comes down to their starting five, that is an elite starting five. You've got two borderline superstars. You've got pretty much all the starting five is all-star caliber if they were to be, a primary option on a team. Or maybe they're just, an all-star in their own right in terms of how they slot into the team. A guy like Derek White, he's a crucial role player, so he was getting all-star calls. So the whole starting five is uber talented, but coming off the bench, maybe a little bit less so. You've got guys like Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, but the bench depth isn't all the way there. And so if you had Lonnie Walker on that team, that's a huge upgrade to your bench depth. And if a guy, like the shooting guard, if Derek White or Jaylen Brown went out, shooting guard / small forward, then Lonnie Walker would be able to step in seamlessly. And he's not going to do all the things that a role player should, like Derek White or Jaylen Brown, but he doesn't need to because you've got so many Swiss Army knives on that starting five. If Lonnie Walker had to come in and just go get a bucket, guess what? Lonnie Walker can do that. There was a stint when he was with the LA Lakers, and it was really only for the first. It wasn't a huge sample size, but there was a point where he was averaging 20 points a night, more than D'Lo was. So Walker is a really, really good scorer, and for a team like the Celtics, especially coming off the bench, I thought that could be really, really valuable. But they've went and waived him, and he had a productive preseason, and it's really probably just a money thing. But for the Boston Celtics, I think that is a loss, and I don't know that you'll really notice the on-the-court impact of it just because of the fact that, you never got to see him suit up in the regular season for the Celtics. If it was someone, like in the case of the Clippers with Paul George, they're going to feel the loss of him, especially now that Kawhi Leonard is out indefinitely because, they saw how good Paul George could be for the Clippers. And you're not going to get to see that for Celtics. So obviously, it's on a different level comparing Lonnie Walker to Paul George, right? But it's the same kind of deal where with Lonnie Walker, you're not going to feel the impact as much as you would PG just because you never got to see him on the court. And this is a team that already won the title. But I feel like Lonnie could have elevated their chances at repeating to win the NBA championship this year. And with him being waived, I think I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to find an NBA team. But I thought the Celtics were a great fit. Mike Conley has really been mentoring Rob Dillingham. Now, Dillingham, as the number 7 overall pick for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he was a very hyped draft prospect, and, he wasn't perceived as maybe having the absolute highest ceiling just because of his archetype as a real score-first guard, right? And, he's on the smaller end, but overall, he seems like a solid NBA prospect at the very minimum. Is he going to be this MVP level guy? Maybe he doesn't have the upside of that, but he's going to come in and be a very good scorer. At minimum, he's a Bones Highland, right? But overall, I think he's going to be even a lot better than that. However, Mike Conley, over this preseason, has really been coaching up Rob Dillingham and constantly been with him on the bench and helping him out, learning the intricacies of the game. And Mike Conley has been around for so long, Minnesota Mike. Until he made the All-Star game, he was one of the best players in NBA history to never be an All-Star. And he was the primary point guard. He was, leading the offense of that grit and grind Grizzlies team for so long. And I think the fact that he was doing that was really valuable because, Rob, his main attribute is his offense, right? But he'd be better served as well to develop a defensive side as well, especially for a team like the Timberwolves that put so much of an emphasis on the defensive end. So to have a guy like Mike Conley, who was the leader of that grit and grind Grizzlies team, to have him mentoring Rob Dillingham, a great playmaker, a great defensive-minded guard that Mike Conley is, to have him mentor Rob, because Rob can be a good scorer no matter what. But to have Mike Conley, I think he's the perfect fit to mentor Rob, because he can show Dillingham what he's missing on the defensive end, on the playmaking for others. So I think it's just a match made in heaven. And I think that Rob Dillingham is going to be a great NBA player in the coming years and be a crucial player for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's great to see Mike Conley really good preseason. That is Zach Edey. And this was a guy who was a really, really polarizing prospect as an NBA draft prospect. Because on one hand, he was one of the best college basketball players that we've seen in a long, long time. He was a completely dominant center for Purdue. On the other hand, though, there were question marks about how his game would translate to the modern NBA. Because he's not this big Wemby center who's going to go out and take threes and handle the ball. But in terms of being a good, center, he'd be great 50 years ago, right? He'd be the number one overall pick without a doubt. But, now it's just more questionable. So we ended up going number 9 to the Memphis Grizzlies. And a lot of people felt like that was a reach. And I feel like I was higher on Zach Edey than most. Because there were circles saying that he was going to go on to do really nothing in the NBA. And I just didn't believe that. I believe that you can have questions about how he fits into the modern NBA. But to say this guy that was so dominant in college and, just in all facets of the game in terms of what he does, he's second to none at that. So to say this guy is going to be a complete bust, amount to overall nothing in the NBA, I think, that isn't necessarily the way to go. And I didn't say he had the highest ceiling just as a result of his fit, but I did think that he was going to be a good NBA player, and I still believe that. And you don't want to overreact to preseason too much, because some guys have bad preseasons, go on to be great NBA players. Some guys have great preseasons, go on to be busts, right? But with Zach Edey, I think everything we've seen from him, right? Whether it was in college or whether it was the NBA preseason, everything we have seen from him, he has gone out there and been a bucket. He's faced criticism for his play style, criticism for his fit in the modern NBA, but whatever the case may be, when he goes out there on the basketball court, he has went out and been productive. So despite what the general opinion might be in terms of his ceiling, I think that Zach Edey can very well be a good NBA player. And his skill set, while it's not perfect for the modern NBA, he doesn't need to be the primary ball handler. They've got Ja Morant, for example, Marcus Smart, right? So if Edey's just able to kind of do what he does, off the bench, especially this year, I think he can without a doubt be a very good NBA player, in spite of his flaws that he can take away. Dalton Knecht had a great last game for the LA Lakers in the preseason. He scored 35 points, I believe, and he had 20 in the fourth quarter alone. And much like Edey, this was a prospect who was talented, but he slipped in the draft due to outside variables. And while Edey was more his fit and how he would translate to the NBA, Dalton Knecht's issue was his age. But the thing with that is you bring him into a team like Lakers, and he fits in well because this is a team that doesn't have much time, and you can argue that they don't have a championship window anyways because they weren't very good last year. But this is a team that wants to win a title because you have an aging LeBron. You have an Anthony Davis who you don't know how healthy he's truly going to be. Same thing with D'Lo. He's been healthy recently, but in years past he had dealt with injuries. And also with D'Lo, you just kind of struggle with playoff inconsistency. So you don't know how long D'Lo's going to be in town. You don't know how long it's going to be until LeBron retires. You don't know how healthy AD's going to be. You want to win another title as soon as you can, and you can make an argument all day about whether that roster is constructed to a point where you can win an NBA championship. But to have a guy like Dalton Knecht, who just in his older age is hopefully going to be able to slot in and play NBA minutes immediately and not be a prospect that you have to develop over years, he's a perfect fit for the Lakers. Same thing with Austin Reeves. He was undrafted, and as an older prospect, he's right now reaching his prime. He's just in his, I believe, 4th year. So for the Lakers, you've got 2 guys like that who can come in and just be good instantly, right? And Austin didn't have the best rookie year. He also didn't get much playing time his rookie year. But ever since he's got playing time, he's been pretty good for them. So for the Lakers, you've got guys like him and Knecht, and they're going to come in and be instant impact. And the Lakers, I don't know. I don't view them as an NBA championship contender. But for a team that hopes to be in contention with LeBron and AD, still playing at a high level, a guy like Dalton Knecht is perfect for them. And we let him go and fall to the Lakers. And he's going to be a great and a very important piece for them this coming season.